Get ready to unleash your inner legal mastermind and embark on an exhilarating legal adventure. Welcome to the Legal Odyssey podcast, where we dive deep into the world of law and bring you face to face with the sharpest legal minds in America. I am thrilled to be your guide on this wild ride as we uncover the hidden secrets of the legal elite. Welcome, dear listeners, to another riveting episode of the Legal Odyssey. I am your host, Haley, and today we have got something truly special in store for you. We are diving headfirst into the intriguing world of estate planning and probate with an attorney who's not just knowledgeable, but passionate about helping families navigate the twists and turns of life with finesse and grace. So without further ado, let's welcome Rebecca Stewart, an esteemed estate planning attorney in East Lansing, Michigan. Rebecca, it is a pleasure to have you on the show.
I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. So to kick things off, could you share with our audience what led you to become an attorney?
Absolutely. So I think like a lot of argumentative kids, I had a lot of adults tell me you should be an attorney, which you realize once you go to law school, that was not a compliment they were giving you. But I did not have anyone in my family that was an attorney. I didn't actually know what attorneys did. So I was a legal secretary for 13 years. Got a lot of experience, got a lot of opportunity to decide, do I really want to spend that 3 years and invest that kind of money to go to law school? So after 13 years, I decided to do it.
That is such an awesome opportunity, and what a way to really immerse yourself in everything to make that commitment. And I love that you got the ability to expand your experience in such a profound way. So I love the intriguing story. You have chosen to focus your firm on estate planning and probate. What led you to really focus solely on those practice areas?
So one of the first places I worked right out of legal secretary school was for a public administrator. And in Michigan, a public administrator is someone who is appointed for people who are not able to make financial or medical decisions for themselves, who did not have anyone named or don't have anyone available. So at 25 years old, I was consenting to medical procedures for people who were my grandparents' ages, and it was really scary, and it was a lot to kind of coach people through. And so I realized that that was something I was passionate about, and that I wanted to help senior citizens because they're so vulnerable, to make sure that they got what they needed. And so I just, starting with that, I became absolutely obsessed with helping people avoid having a public guardian appointed.
I love that passion and how it sparked from, seeing there's something missing and there's a space you need to fill to help people avoid difficult situations. Now that we know a little bit about you, Rebecca, and how you got started with estate planning and probate, let's dive into that expertise. So our world is currently in the throes of a significant transition as students are heading back to school and parents are sending their young adults off to college. So in today's episode, we're aiming to really arm our listeners with the crucial legal insights that often really slip through the cracks during these transformative phases. So let's just touch a little bit on when your child does turn 18 and steps into adulthood. What are the top legal ramifications that parents might overlook during this transition, especially, in the child's health and financial information?
So a lot of, you're excited for college, and parents are, how am I going to pay for it? And what do I got to get them so that they have, sheets and towels and all that exciting stuff and gear for their university. And that's so fun and exciting. But what parents tend to forget about is your child is 18. And so in the eyes of the state, they are now an adult. And while they feel like your baby, because they are your baby and they're always going to be your baby, you no longer have the ability to step in and help them file taxes or help them with their banking, help them fill out those FAFSA forms. You can't go to the doctor's appointments with them. You can't call the doctor for them and find out what's going on or get their prescriptions filled for them because they're now a separate legal adult. And so parents forget that if something happens, they can't step in the way they've always been able to before. And so that is a huge thing that gets overlooked very often, especially when we're talking about that transition into college.
Exactly. And it's such a huge phase. There's so many things going on that I mean the last thing I guess we all think about is the legal ramifications. So what are this there's probably a handful, but what are some solutions that parents can use to help avoid legal battles or roadblocks should an emergent situation come up where they do need immediate help or financial information?
So there are a couple, and it's so funny because everybody thinks of estate planning as something you do when you're older or retired, but there's a handful of documents that at 18 are so essential. The first one, and the one I tried to push the most, is a patient advocate or a healthcare power of attorney. This allows a parent, if a child is in a car accident and they're unconscious, or they're under heavy sedation and so they're unable to make medical decisions for themselves. This allows the parent to do what they've always done their kid's whole life and make those decisions, talk with their doctors, help them through that process. Without that document, you're talking about in Michigan, $157 to file a petition. You're going to have a hearing in front of a judge, and that's all to make those decisions that you've been doing for the past 18 years, whereas a very small form can get you that exact same power. The other ones you're going to be looking at is the companion form to that healthcare is a HIPAA authorization. Most people are familiar with these. They fill them out at their doctor's office. It just gives you access to your child's medical records so you can see what's going on, make informed decisions. The other two that get overlooked that I think the kids are a little more interested in having if they want help is a durable power of attorney. That enables you to help them file taxes, do banking, particularly if your child goes overseas for study abroad. Having a durable power of attorney allows them to sign and file documents on their behalf or do their banking for them. The other one is there's a customized power of attorney that you can do specifically for college kids. It complies with the federal regulations because a lot of parents don't realize your child's 18. The school can't give you their grades. It can't tell you if they're going to classes. It can't give you information on discipline. So unless you have a power of attorney that specifically grants you those powers, you contact the school, they're going to turn you away. They're not going to be able to help you. And so having all of that in place just allows you, while your child is transitioning into adulthood, to continue to kind of be that safety net for them, which is so essential in those years.
Absolutely. And I love to hear all of this because I think it's information that just, actually hearing is like, oh my goodness, duh, that is something I should have thought about. But it's easy not to, easy not to. But at the same time, like, oh my goodness, it's so great to hear this from you, Rebecca. So, you mentioned the possibility of a student like studying abroad. What about just, the mere fact of your student possibly attending college outside of your home state? Does that require more paperwork in terms of some of the ones you've just discussed?
So, as is often the case with legal situations, an ounce of prevention is huge. So, if you're thinking about these documents, the best time to do them is that period of May to July when your child is still at home and still a resident of your home state. Because if you get a document executed while they're still a resident of their home state and it complies with the laws of that state, it should be recognized in the next state. If you wait and your kid's already in the dorm, you're going to have to start looking for an attorney who's licensed in the state where they're living to make sure that that document complies. So it is, if there's a window to do it, it would be that right after graduation, but before you pack up the car and send them on their way. That's really when you want to get it done. It's not impossible to get it done at the state in which they're getting school done, but it can make it a little trickier.
Absolutely. So parents of juniors and juniors, high school juniors, listen up. It's time to start thinking about that stuff. Is there any specific advice that you would give someone to help find them an attorney that can really help them provide the best estate planning services for them in East Lansing, Michigan?
So I'd say there's a couple of things you could do. The first is do not be afraid to look for somebody who is the right personality fit. I'm not always the right personality fit for somebody. the people down the road are not always the right personality fit. But when you're talking about medical decisions, when you're talking about the most personal moments in your life where you're out of control, you want someone you are comfortable sharing and talking to and who you feel like is listening to you and following what you need. Because the goal of this document is you're no longer able to speak for yourself. And so we want it to say what you want.
Is such a perfect way to put that, Rebecca. And I think it's such a good point to make as well, because the relationship with the attorney ideally could be a very long-term relationship.
Absolutely. So particularly with an estate planning attorney, if you're talking about your child meeting with an estate planner at 18, now they know an attorney, and they might, especially if there's somebody they're comfortable with, now your kid has somebody to call if they run into a legal issue. But then you have somebody to also go to for those other big milestones. I'm getting married. What do I need to do? We're pregnant. What do we need to do to plan for our child's future? Now our child's turned 18. I think they need to come in and see you. It can create a very personal relationship the same way you might have with a primary care physician.
Absolutely, and almost a whole nother level of empowerment for you and your family. And so it certainly is possible to get a lot of the forms we've discussed done on your own, online or through, some online services. However, there are some major advantages to having an attorney by your side to get that all executed. Can you discuss just a couple of challenges you may have seen people run into when they have attempted to go through those paperworks or those forms on their own?
So every estate planner can tell you the story of a client who either passed away with documents they got online that were not at all what was needed or what met what the client want, or the client who says, I got my documents done online, but now I'm not so sure about them. Can you come look at them? The two biggest things I would say is, number one, when you're using those services, you're frequently not actually speaking with an attorney. You're speaking with the computer. And while there are many things the computer is good at, it can't read you, it can't see you, and it doesn't have a history of interacting with people and having conversations about these documents. So sometimes it doesn't know that a hesitation in your answer is you're not quite sure, and that they need to push a little harder to make sure that the document does what you want. The other issue you run into with online services is, try as we might, every state's laws are different. And so these companies try to create a one-size-fits-all, but that does not always create a valid document in your state. And so going to a local estate planner is going to ensure, number one, that they really check with you to make sure that those documents are tailored to your needs and your desires. And number two, that they work within the laws of your state. So in the example of a healthcare power of attorney, when you meet with a local estate planner, that document, all of the hospitals are going to be able to recognize it. They've seen it before. They're familiar with it. They know how to use it. Same thing's going to go for the bank. But if you're using an online template, it might be confusing to the healthcare professional. And now we're back to where we started, where we've got confusion when we were trying to avoid confusion. So I certainly understand the appeal of them, but particularly when you're talking about something as personal as healthcare decision-making, financial decision-making, or what happens to your belongings when you're gone, you really need to meet with somebody and talk with somebody. Because the other thing is if a family member isn't sure, they can't ask the online service about the conversation they had. But you could call me, and I could perhaps, if you are on the list of people I can talk to, give you some insights into the conversation we had that could help you better make decisions if you're in a place to make a decision for a loved one.
That makes so much sense. And I think it even makes me think about just the fact of knowing that, when I think about my elders and their planning for their future, our future, etc., I would want somebody helping them along the way. I can't imagine them even attempting to weave through all of the legal jargon and everything that could trip you up and, like you said, cause confusion on the paperwork in the end. And so I love the relationship that you mentioned and that you clearly build with each of your clients to ensure that their needs are so fulfilled. So before I let you go, Rebecca, for someone that is seeking an estate planning or probate attorney in East Lansing, Michigan, is there anything else you'd like to share? Any final words of encouragement or guidance?
So I would say if a firm is asking you for an initial payment up front, so your consultation is not free, that firm's going to charge you a lot of money. And I'm not saying that that means them good or bad, but if you are budget conscious at all, somebody who does not offer you a free consultation is going to charge you much higher than people who offer free consultations. The other thing, and nobody seems to think about this, and maybe it's my background as a support staff member. Does the secretary, was she friendly on the phone or he friendly on the phone? Did they seem happy at their job? Does the receptionist seem happy to be there, or do they seem like they're miserable? Because people who do not take good care of their staff do not care about their clients. If they don't care about the people they work with every single day, they don't care about you. And when it comes to this kind of document, you really need somebody who understands and takes the time and cares about what's important to you. Because again, these documents are going to step in when you're no longer able to speak for yourself.
That is such perfect advice and such an amazing tip for our audience, Rebecca. I love it. Thank you so, so much for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I was so happy to do it.
Of course, and thank you to our wonderful listeners for tuning into this insightful episode of The Legal Odyssey. Remember, this podcast is not legal advice, but empowerment is fueled by knowledge, and we're here to help you tap into the sharpest legal minds in America to empower you with secrets to help navigate through life's twists and turns with ease. That wraps up today's episode, but don't fret, we'll be back with more revelations that'll leave you astounded. Until next time, stay legally empowered.